Welcome to the first part in my little mini series of videos on how to go pro. How to take your photography from amateur status to selling your work. So if you're interested in marketing your work, even if it's just to provide a secondary income, not necessarily going professional full-time or anything, then hopefully these videos will help you along the way. My professional sort of career as a photographer started back in the mid-90s. I was back then I was shooting film, and I was shooting everything from portraits, weddings, to architecture, landscape, news orientated pictures, all kinds of things, everything you can think of basically to make a living. Landscape was always my passion, but I knew even back then it was very difficult to make a living purely from landscape photography. So I sort of tried all these different avenues of photography to make it work, and you know, over the years I shot everything. I learnt as I was doing the job basically. I remember turning up on some jobs and literally not having a clue what I was doing, and sort of stepping in at the deep end, and sometimes it's the best way to learn. So yeah, this first series is about food photography. It's something that I've done over the past 15-20 years now. I've worked for magazines, I've shot food for stock, I've done brochure work, PR work, working with restaurants, hotels, bars. I've worked for quite a few sort of well-known chefs as well, so it's quite a pressurised environment, but I mean, technically it's quite an easy subject to photograph. I say that, I've always found it quite easy to compose and get the shots that I want. It's the most difficult part is the time frame when you're doing it on commission. You turn up, you've literally got a time slot where, especially if it's a busy restaurant, in between sort of opening times, you've got like small time slots where you've got to get these dishes photographed. You're working with a chef that's producing the food, and it's coming out dish by dish, and you're on a sort of a tight time scale to get those pictures. But yeah, it's still a lucrative avenue of photography even these days. It's quite a niche subject, and I think that you can still make money shooting food, whether it be, like I say, for local restaurants, or whether you want to sort of take it a step further and have your own studio with a kitchen and all that kind of thing. It's entirely up to you, but yeah, it's quite a good area to get into. And obviously, before you jump straight in and go knocking on Jamie Oliver's door, I would sort of practice. If you've never shot food before, I would definitely practice before you take the plunge. Go out to the supermarket, buy some food, either cook it yourself or use something pre-made. Play around with backgrounds. Backgrounds are quite important for food photography. I used to obviously dress the table, backgrounds, the dish itself. Used to sort of spruce it up with different like glycerine sprays and all kinds of stuff to make it look sort of tasty and big on the page. And in terms of backgrounds, play around with different backgrounds. You'd be surprised what actually works. I've got a little setup today that I'm gonna shoot a dessert and show you step by step how I set things up and the sort of results that you can expect to get with a very simple setup. I use, like I say, a very basic setup. I don't use studio flash. Very rarely use flash guns at all. Maybe occasionally for a bit of fill-in flash, but it's not normally needed. I tend to use a simple setup with reflectors and natural daylight. Camera wise, I've got I'm using my full frame Canon at the moment. Tend to use either a macro lens or a sort of longer telephoto lens. get nice and close to the food. Depending on what dish it is that you're photographing, sometimes it's the best shots are sort of on the same level as the food. Sometimes it works when you're above. It depends on the dish, but we'll go through I'll go through a few sort of setup shots and angles and show you what works and what kind of doesn't work, and talk you through all the bits and pieces. In terms of camera settings, I do tend to use a tripod. I've seen guys using cameras handheld and obviously uprating the ISO to combat sort of camera shape, but I prefer working on a tripod because the camera is locked down and you can sort of concentrate on moving things around, knowing that the camera's still in that same position, so it definitely is almost like a third hand. Wide apertures, most of the time I'll be shooting wide open to get that nice sort of depth of field, that shallow depth of field effect. And also shutter speeds, obviously I'll try to shoot in manual if I can. I did used to shoot in aperture priority when I was on these food shoots, because purely for speed more than anything. And this was in the days of film where you couldn't get your instant replay on the back, so it was a lot easier to shoot in aperture priority and bracket around the exposure that you had. So we'll get set up. I'll show you what I've got to photograph, the actual dish itself, the background, and a few of the little bits and pieces that come in handy, and we'll set something up. Okay, so what have I got? Been to the shop and I've bought a cherry and custard tart. Not very glamorous. I know I could have knocked something up myself, but I'm not that great a cook, so this should do the trick. Cut a nice little slice out, plate it up, ice and sugar. Dust a bit of this on the dish itself, or sprinkle it around the outside. That kind of works, but you've got to be quick with this stuff because it does melt if you're not careful. Mint, a few sort of fresh sprigs of mint on the top. Little tip: put these in the freezer just before you're about to use them, about 10-15 minutes before you use them. You get that it keeps them nice and crisp, and also gets a little build up of moisture on the leaves as well. But it just, obviously the colour wise with this, you've got red and yellow and green. And again, thinking about colours, it's a nice sort of colour combination, nice contrast. And the background, well, I found 3 planks of wood. I know it didn't look very nice, a bit rough and ready, but lay these side by side, you'd be surprised what you can use as background. Looks quite authentic, so I'm going to try this. So let's get set up. Okay, that's my background set up. I've cut a slice, doesn't look much at the moment, I know. Nice sort of textured background. 3 planks of old wood, literally just found them out in the kitchen there. So I've sliced up. I haven't sort of dressed this yet. Going for a very simple sort of shot here. I'm in a window here, so nice sort of natural daylight, and I'm going to use one of these little Light reflector. So I'll show you what this is. Pop this one out. There you go. So you've got white on one side, silver on the other. I'll just demonstrate how this kind of fills the natural, well, bounces the natural daylight back onto the subject. Basically, what I'm aiming to do is to bounce the light back onto the shadow areas there. Can you just see that? Sometimes it's very subtle. There you go. I can boost the exposure up as well. But that's quite nice. That sort of fills out those shadows on the left hand side. So first things first, I'm just going to dust some ice and sugar on there. There we go, just a little bit. Just put that down there a minute. I'm going to pick out a couple of sprigs of mint. There we go, just a nice little sprig of mint. Just put that at the background there. So again, I can play around with this once I get the picture in frame. Just another sprinkle of There we go. That looks quite nice now. Again, very simple setup. So the aim now is to photograph this, focusing on this part here, so all this texture here, nice sort of low angle, and then get a shallow sort of focus in the background then. Just a standard sort of plate there. So see how this works. Okay, so I've chosen an upright composition here. There we go, nice sort of clean background, and the colours are nice and sort of neutral in the background as well, and they fit with the plate. I've then got the contrasting colours of the red, green and yellow then of the dish itself. So I'm in manual mode at the moment, chosen to shoot this in manual. Open my lens up to about 4.5, f4.5 at ISO 100, and that gives me a 2-second shutter speed. Now I'm aiming to push this histogram as far right as I can without it overexposing. So you can see there it's clipping the edge, that's a bit too much, so I'll keep it around the 2-second mark. Now focusing wise, I want to focus right on the point of this dish here. So if I move my cursor around, there we go, focus on there. And I'm ready to take the shot. Make sure you've got autofocus off. Beautiful. Now you can see it's blowing out a bit here on the right hand side. That's fine. It's not a in post process, and I can get that to disappear. Sort of bring it back a bit. The main part of the dish is fine. That's quite nice. Now obviously I'm a little bit higher than the dish here. Some food works if you like right on top of it, looking over the top. Other dishes work if you're right up close, some further away. So I'll try a few different angles here. In terms of saleability, sometimes I've composed this shot with in a landscape format, slight tilt on the camera. But in terms of saleability, if you think to yourself, if this is going in a magazine on a centre spread, for instance, you can imagine the centre spread coming down the middle. So you want to sort of compose it so there's space over on the right hand side. So for instance, if they wanted to put a recipe in text on the right hand side, they can, or an advert or whatever they want. So you compose it. I mean, if you're shooting for stock as well, just keep that in mind. But yeah, just a slightly different composition there. And also don't be afraid to play around with apertures. I've shot this one here now, this composition. I was at f4.5 before, and I wasn't getting enough definition in the background there, so I've gone down to f8, which gives me a little bit more focus in the back. And because I'm focused quite close, it's not a great deal of difference, but it makes a subtle difference and sort of pulls out the detail in the back of this tart. There we go. The last shot here, I've got a bit of a higher viewpoint again, slightly higher again, and I've used the edge of the frame to run parallel with the side of the tart there. So I'm facing down on the dish, slightly tilted over again, nice clear background. Instead of focusing on the front of the tart there, I've focused on the side now, and I'm again using an aperture of f8. So it gives me a bit more detail in this part, so it throws the background and the foreground out of focus. So overall, yeah, I'm quite happy with that, especially for a $1.99 tart. Well, I hope you enjoyed that video. Something a bit different for me, I know. It's hopefully you've picked up a few tips from there. The next one I'm going to do is about postcards, greeting cards and calendars. How to approach those sort of markets, how to sell to them, and what sort of thing to shoot. That one will be up. That'll be up soon. Don't forget to subscribe and click the notification bell. That'll notify you when these new videos come up. Well, thanks for watching. Say again, I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you on the next one.